Hello and welcome to our inaugural episode of our podcast, Academia. I'm João Sack and I'm here with my friends and colleagues Javier Muller and Pedro Reis. And we are IB diploma students. This podcast was created with the intent to explore a variety of themes, namely politics, history and economics. And it is also part or an activity integrated in our CAS program in project. The themes will be presented through a wide variety of forms. For example, debates between us and guests, interviews with guests that we think that are specialized in the areas or topics presented, or merely the explanation and opinion about the theme. We will try always to present different perspectives about the themes presented, as you already noticed, we will make this podcast only in English. I would like to remark that despite our age, we will make an effort to explain with the greatest accuracy possible with reasoned arguments. We will post at least 2 podcast episodes per month. We would appreciate if our listeners could share with us, share this podcast with friends, family, and school colleagues. Furthermore, we would like if you could send us suggestions, comments via email for themes that you would like to hear about or other suggestions. For example, if you want the podcast to last longer, or the opposite way. Now I shall give it to my colleagues in order today to introduce themselves. Javier?
Hello, I'm 16, as my colleagues, and even though I haven't got history of one of my sectors like the IB, I'm interested in global issues and affairs, and I also find that history is a great key to understand the present. I would also now like to introduce us our friend Pedro.
Hello, I'm Pedro, and I'm 15 years old. History, but mainly economics and politics is one of the favorite things I like to discuss.
Continuing to today's topic, that is migration or migration wave of the recent years, especially concerning Western Europe. I'm sure that is definitely a topic related to our lives and current situation of Europe. As we all know, a great quantity of people have come to Europe seeking for better life conditions and escaping war, famine, or poverty. And this has led to the tragic events such as ships of poor construction sinking in the Mediterranean with migrants inside, illegal and uncontrolled immigration, growth of radical parties, and social tension amongst immigrants and inhabitants. What we want to debate here today is what are the positive and negative aspects of this immigration wave, and reach a conclusion, or at least I hope so. This wave of immigrants from the Middle East, namely Syria and Africa, is a result of many different aspects, so it is difficult to cover them all. But I think that Javier can give us a little explanation of what are the main reasons for this immigration wave.
Well, I would say that the main reason is actually safety factors. For example, we have civil wars in Syria and Iraq. That in Syria there are almost 5 million refugees, not all seeking asylum in Europe. 40% of the migrants in on Europe are actually because Syria. Then Iraq is also responsible of 18% of the migrants in Europe, so this gives a total of 60%. There's also another problem that is increasing violence in Afghanistan that is responsible of almost 30% of the total immigrants. There are also other causes such as lack of freedom or instability politically or economically, but there might also be some economic factors these are related to economic immigrants and not to refugees. That is because there's poverty and lack of jobs in Middle East and in Africa, and the job prospects with higher wages are always present in Europe. That might be related also with some environmental factors, such as loss of crops, that are a great cause of poverty.
With this explanation, we can proceed to the debate. My first question is to Pedro. To what extent do you think immigrants will affect the economy of the Western Europe countries?
Of course, this will depend on many factors. The quantity of immigrants we accept, but also the way they go and the countries they go. For example, if we accept immigrants in Germany, it will be different from accepting immigrants in Portugal. Germany unemployment rate is really low. It's about 3%, 3.4. The last thing I record, and in Portugal is in 8%, 7.9, according to Economia Express. So unemployment it's not a problem in Germany, while in Portugal it's still a problem, although it's recovering. But there's another thing. If we look to fertility rates, the demography issues, both Portugal and Germany have this great issue. They need people.
Javier, have you something to say about this? Any different opinion or arguments that you want to present?
Well, I would like to agree with Pedro in the aspect that there might be difficulties in accepting a great quantity of immigrants into Europe. But as I will explain later, there's also a need that Europe has, a huge need of accepting immigrants. So I would like to say this, that we need these immigrants, even though we can't now give them a job or a place to live.
I have another question. This is one intended to you, Javier. How do you think that the entry of immigrants in the Western Europe will benefit the countries in question in terms of entry of young people in the countries with low birth rate, and how this phenomenon will develop these countries? I have perceived that you already talked about this, but can you give us further explanations?
Well, considering Europe's actual birth rate is maintained constant, that is now 1.6 child per woman, by a report made by the United Nations, European population will be halved in 2100 and decimated by 2300. We can see this is a problem, a big problem that Europe has. And I think that this question of if it is a benefit or if it is not a benefit is a question of 30 years. Because after that, it will be a greater need, and maybe we will be paying them to come to Europe, not trying to get them apart, and we'll be desperately needing human resources in the future if we don't accept enough immigrants now.
Pedro, do you want to contest his opinion or add something to this?
I think what Javier said is very important, and we need to look at this problem. The demography in European countries is a serious problem, but we will also need to look at other aspects. If we accept lots of immigrants, then there might be problems, and we have those problems of those immigrants that can't adapt to our culture. So we need to. I think we should accept them when they are refugees, mainly because, they are human beings. But we also need to understand that there might cause problems if we don't accept them in a ordered way, in a proper way. So it's a problem we need to look at with very careful, never regarding that there are human beings. But also we must see that not all illegal immigrants are refugees, and that's another problem, because the difficult thing is to define what is a refugee and what isn't, and because people that are illegal immigrants and that are not refugees, well, if we allow them to enter in our culture, there is an advantage, an unjust and fair advantage in relation to other people that can try to enter in Europe, but they can't. So we need to define some things here.
What you're trying to say, it's that people under the flag of being illegal immigrants are just people with the dream or want to enter in Europe for a better life, but they are not affected by war. They are just seeking a better life and in economic a better economic prospect. Is that what you're trying to say?
It depends. What I'm trying to say is that we need to distinguish them from those who really suffer from war and from all the catastrophes in Syria, for example, the war in Syria or in Iraq and all that stuff.
Well, I agree with you, but I actually think that economic immigrants are a greater, we would say, economic exchange for Europe in the fact that we benefit more from economic immigrants than from refugees. The problem is mainly with the refugees. If we don't, if we cannot accept so much refugees as there is the need of being refugees, we need to solve the problem there. And there's also been some Morocco has also been doing something like this. In Africa, they're trying to develop the developed countries to create a sustainable economy in order to radical parties such as Islamic parties and these kinds of terrorism groups not to be so easy to go into countries that are so poor that cannot offer any resistance to these terrorism groups.
Okay, I mean, we need to. I agree with you in the what you said about economic immigrants, but we need to look at if an economic immigrant is illegal, then that's unfair to other economic immigrants that can't enter in our society because of that. So we need to that economic immigrants can otherwise they wouldn't be economic immigrants, they would be refugees. They have means to go to our countries and our Europe in a proper way, in a way that it's legal, and that is not what we are discussing here. I think what we are discussing here is that this recent wave of migration, and that's the refugees problem. That's it's difficult. Okay, so we need to accept them, but how? How I say that you want to accept, and I want to accept the refugees too. But how do you propose to accept them? Just to let them in and let it be, or just have a program and let in a certain number of refugees and planning some things from them from there, and say, okay, you can enter, but in this city there is excess of people to the place the city have. The city is growing too fast, so we allow you to win in this country, but we offer you a place in another city, but not in Lisbon, for example. Lisbon is growing very fast, so Lisbon can't receive all people they want to get in. And if a refugee comes and wants to go to Lisbon, I think Portugal, in this case, has the legitimate to say, okay, we allow you to come because you need help.
Well, it's not only that they need help; we also need them.
Okay, but you need help, so we will let you in, but we will offer you a home, a place with certain conditions that you can live there in another city.
So you would offer a place to an immigrant instead of offering that place to a homeless Portuguese?
No, what I'm saying is, of course, homeless Portuguese can ask if they want to go to that place too, and we should accept homeless Portuguese. What I'm saying is that we shouldn't accept refugees, but they should go to.
The question was if we should accept. You asked first if we should accept immigrants without limits and without regulation. I don't think so. But I don't think the restrictive political measures that have been discussed at Europe are the best approach to the problem.
I think what Pedro is trying to say, if I'm correct, is that the entry of immigrants can help us develop underdeveloped regions in our country. For example, in Portugal, but there are other countries that suffer from the same type of underdevelopment in small towns or in small villages. Is that what we're trying to say? We can place that quantity of migrants and immigrants in poor regions of our own country to help develop these poor regions, like a mutual.
How do you propose to let them, but only in some places that are not completely closed from the rest of Portugal?
Yeah, that's a problem. I'm I'm thinking about. I thought about a lot about it, and of course there is no perfect model. But what I was trying to say, it's really what João said. It's that we should accept them, but in the poor places in Portugal, or I'm speaking about Portugal because we are Portuguese and it's the reality we know more. And what I think is we should offer them a home in those places, so that it's good for us because they will develop them, and it's good for them because they were refugees and it's they are in better condition than they were in Iraq or in Syria. You agree with that? I think.
Yes. Yes.
So what I'm saying is that we can give them a home in a poor zone in Portugal or in not so developed zone place in Portugal, and we simply give a home there, but we don't need to give them a house in Lisbon, so that they will, for example, so that they have an opportunity, an easy way to go to Portugal if they go to the place the state offer them. But if they go to Lisbon, it will be difficult for them to find a home. So they will go to the Beja, for example, which is another a place in Portugal, a city in Portugal that is not so developed. It's more poor. It's in the poor region of Portugal, and if we allow them to go to Beja freely, they can go to Beja easily. Then they can go to Lisbon, so they will go to Beja, and it's good for everyone. Of course, when they have economic conditions to go to Lisbon, if they want to go, well, we can't forbid that. I think because our country doesn't have borders inside it, but from the moment they arrive at Portugal and the moment they will have economic conditions to move, that will pass years, and in these years they will adapt to our culture and they will be Portuguese, I think, because 3 years, 4 years they will learn Portuguese. They will cover all the requisites
to gain nationality.
Is that exactly?
But I have another question that I want to ask you, Pedro. Do you think that the entry of great quantity of immigrants will affect what we can consider a European culture and our society values? When I say affect, I mean undermine these aspects. Let me clarify the question. I'm talking about what we see as the core of our culture: Christianity, the values of Jewish and Christian values, our moral and ethics code or core opinions about are the same between us Europeans. So, do you think that the entry of the Islamic culture, mainly, or African or different African culture, would undermine these aspects?
That's a very important and delicate issue, of course, because if we allow lots of people of other culture to get in our society will change. But we need to look the problem as what our culture says about it. Our tradition, our culture, our Christianity culture, even though not all Europeans are Christian, not all even, I think, but there is a culture that we should accept other people, that there is some solidarity in that. So if we want to really be coherent with our culture, we should accept people. Although we need to the people that enter in our societies must we need to impose them conditions, because we say, okay, we want to get in Portugal, or you want to get in Spain or whatever, but here we can't apply your Muslim law, for example. There is in some places in many Islamic cultures they use the what they call the Sharia law. So we need to say them, okay, here there is no no Sharia law. We must respect the other cultures that are in our country and that our laws. For example, um, and we need to look as you talk about the cultural impact of enter the entrance of immigrants in our society.
So, Javier, what do you have to say about this?
Well, I think that what Pedro meant was that they should accept our culture. I don't think that's reasonable, mainly because they have a really strong culture, and our culture, because we are European, is breaking apart. As I said a little bit before, in only 80 years, our population will have halved. So, if the main reason isn't if they are going to break European culture or not, because European culture is breaking itself because of this demographic problem. We will no longer have the European culture in less than 100 years. The problem is the European culture is gonna be broken. Oh well, I think it is gonna be broken because of this problem. But the thing is, we need these immigrants, even though their culture. So we need them. Our culture is not weakening, and their culture is strong. But we cannot do anything to stop that from happening.
But I didn't say that they should, or that we must impose them to be parts of our culture. We don't need to. I think we shouldn't select just Christian refugees or Jewish refugees. I think we should accept all that need help. What I said was that they should and they must accept our culture. They must respect it.
But do you really think that they will? That's a real question.
Wait.
And I think they won't. But that's not the main reason. That's not the main problem.
So wait a moment. So if we must say that if we allow people to get in our societies that doesn't respect our culture and that they with the object of destroying it,
but it's gonna break apart.
So
it's not because of them that the European culture is gonna break.
So you're saying that if we allow lots of Muslim people to get in our society, they won't accept that. They won't accept our culture, and they will destroy our culture.
Yes, but our culture, what I'm saying is that, but also that our culture is going to be destroyed in 50 years. So
what you're saying is that our culture will be destroyed anyway. So we should accept Muslim people.
Yes, because if not, also with that,
otherwise we'll have economic problems.
See, even economic problems added to the cultural problems, but the cultural problems, I think that they are present and they are not going to leave us. So if we can make the economic problems, we can do anything to solve them. I think that we should do it.
But should we really talk about cultural breaking apart or like a mixing of cultures? As we've seen many times, cultures get mixed up and they develop, they change. When you talk about our culture breaking down, is a cultural mixing.
It's a cultural absorption. Yes, but I think that will happen even though if we do not accept refugees, because we do not accept now, but we will be needing them later, and maybe later they won't be coming because they will say, "Wow, this are having hard problems, economical problems, so this is not a good place to go."
But look, what you're saying, correct if I'm mistaken or wrong, but is that our culture, our society will be destroyed in 50 years, and unless because of our economic problems and other changes and other influences in our culture, and that so we should accept, we should allow and incentive lots of immigration in order to solve that economic problems and to save our society. Let's use that term. But but you are saying at the same time that our culture will be destroyed. What I propose is that we should accept immigration in another way, so that immigration we can remove from the culture of our immigrants the best aspects and the best things of it, but they will not overlap. They will not destroy our culture. If we do it in another way, our we can be more sustainable in economic terms, but also in our culture. If we go for your suggestion that we allow everyone to get in our societies, like in least controlled way, they will solve our economic problems. They might create others, but at least these ones are solved. But our culture will be destroyed. So my question is, if you prefer destroyed society.
We are reaching the end. Nevertheless, I have a last question that I would like if you could conclude your opinions. Do you think we are obliged to accept these immigrants, or there is another way to resolve this issue, Pedro? Resolving the issue in their own country, in Syria. I want you to briefly respond to this question.
Okay, I think the best way to solve problems is not creating them. So I think this question serves as lesson in if we have other future issues, is that the way we treated these teams in Arabia was lead to this migration wave. But yes, of course, there are so many people in these poor regions in North Africa and in Arabia that the best way to solve the problem is in that place. And that's a very delicate issue, because there are, even between Muslims, there are, as you know, very many tensions between them, like there were in Christianity when Europe was major states were Christian states, in like Protestants and Catholics, etc. And the solution must be in that place, of course, but we will need the solution to solve the problem that we created of immigration anyway.
And Javier, to what extent allowing massively the immigrants in Western Europe countries will enrich them instead of making the inhabitants support radical parties that are against the entry of immigrants? I want you to also to briefly respond to this question.
I think that there will always be friction, mainly because of two causes. That one is recent discriminance and hardness of integrating these people in our Western culture. That people, even people from our culture, wouldn't accept these immigrants. But there's also another problem, that is, we have a weak culture that what thinks that is to accept other cultures is to say that they can do whatever they want, because our culture must not be superior to any culture. So they will, as they have a strong culture, and they say, well, we will impose our culture. They're going to impose themselves on Europe, and that might also create some problems of integration. But however, as I've referred, the subject of accepting or not a quantity of migrants in Europe is a debate that is temporary, and I think that will end when the effects of Europe's birth rate start to become critical. So the benefit of accepting these refugees is having an increase in the birth rate and mitigating the effect of a decrease in population.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Pedro. It was very interesting to hear your opinions. I hope that our listeners appreciate this debate. And if you like, please share this podcast in your social media like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, with your family, friends, and colleagues. Also, you can always leave suggestions and comments via email www.academiapodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, and until next episode.